So let me go ahead and give a quick disclaimer. These are my opinions, my views, my research, and so forth. It does not necessarily reflect the views of my agency, the United States government, or any other governmental agency. So that's done, okay? So don't go out back and quote that, well, the United States Air Force says. No, that was Gary King. And be honest with you, this is the very first time, and my friends out there will get a kick out of it, that I actually go by doctor. At work, I try to remind people that I'm still Gary. My doctorate, I'm very proud of. I enjoyed working with people like Dr. Spangler, Dr. Paulette to earn it. However, I was Gary before, and it didn't really change me other than I understand how to do research, as Dr. Rhoda would put it, and I still experiment with research. So with that being said, what I would like to do is first give you a little bit about me. I'd like to thank the Middle Georgia State University for inviting me to speak at their inaugural cybersecurity conference. Especially Dr. Spangler, I'm happy he thought of me, gave me a call, and he goes, can you do it? I asked him for a couple of weeks to clear my calendar, so I'm here to support him. So I am, which way? There we go. So I am a Georgia native. That's why Scott called upon me. I am from Wilkes County. So first of all, out for the live stream crowd, I'm happy you're here, but if you're from Wilkes County, thank you for showing up to support this project also. And if there's anybody in here from Wilkes County, I'd like to talk to you at the end. I'll also claim Lincoln County and Elbert County because I have relatives there. But so sometimes being from Georgia, I kind of get comfortable and I start to talk in the way I would talk when I'm back in Wilkes County. So if I start to do that today, somebody please raise their hand so I know to slow down, to enunciate words, and so forth. Okay? The previous speakers, they spoke about communication and being able to think both critically and creatively to solve problems. I'm going to tell you, when you're investigating a network intrusion or conducting forensics, to solve problems that were addressed, and you may not be able to solve problems that were addressed in procedural steps. You have to understand those procedural steps were to give you a foundation, but you have to use that best thing that you have, which is your mind, to think out of the box, okay? And I'm telling you, it's happened to me plenty of times, and when all else fails, you should have a Rolodex of people that you can call that can help you talk through a problem. I find sometimes when I'm trying to solve a problem, it is easy if I talk to somebody and I will probably come up with the solution myself, but I call upon them. So while you're here developing friendships at school, think about those people as your Rolodex. You'll be able to meet people in industry also and treat them as your Rolodex too. Okay, the question about communicating effectively, spot on. Can't drive that home enough. I, on more than one occasion, have failed to communicate effectively. Whether it's I have my decision maker who I'm briefing, I misanalyze their knowledge of the subject, whether they had a lot of knowledge of the subject, whether they've had less knowledge of a subject. For example, buzzwords will kill me, will kill most of us, because you will get leaders who will spout the buzzword and they will say it, but they're repeating from a PowerPoint presentation someone gave them. I had the misperception on a couple of occasions thinking the person actually knew what they were talking about. You know, and so in that case, by me coming in talking about a subject at a higher level, I lost that momentum and I kind of lost the argument. Okay, for example, I would use, there's a perception out there, first of all, how many people in here, rather, and in TV land, played video games coming up? How many of you had computers coming up? Since you have been in the IT department in a forensics program, do you think those two things prepared you for forensics, that you knew everything before you got here? Well, I'll tell you, so some misconceptions out there that because millennials grew up with computers, grew up playing computer games, they must know computers and they understand everything. My father was a mechanic, and I'll tell you like this. He believed before you got a driver's license that you needed to demonstrate 3 other things after you drove the car. Check the oil, put gas in it, and change a flat tire. We've been driving cars how long? And I can tell you people that can do it, but have no interest in doing it, or don't have an interest in learning. But sometimes for millennials, people think that is what they understand and they can grasp something much quicker, okay? Yeah, like I said, I've failed on more than one occasion. So what I'd like to go and say, as I delve into what my topic is, it's a cybercrime, and we're talking a discussion here. Hopefully I got it timed down just right, or if not, we can talk about my dissertation research, and I think that will tie in also. So with that, let's go ahead. So my overview, introduction, which I just gave about myself. I 35 years as a law enforcement agent and counterintelligence agents. The personal trivia part, since we got everything else corrected, is this. So the fastest time it has taken me to catch a hacker, would anybody want to haphazard a guess? 30 minutes. I was very fortunate. Had a case involving where I needed to look at an organization's network, but I had no legitimate right to be there. My US attorney, even though I could show through dumpster diving their network diagram, and I could show other indications they had a network back in the 90s, he couldn't grasp it, put his head around the problem. He wanted me to physically go look and say, yes, they have a network. That doesn't mind you, I've interviewed 5 previous network administrators that could tell they had a network. So in this case, the hacker was a young kid, was an intern. He was trying to break into the local school system. Our Air Force computer emergency response team got an alert because they saw a exploit run that they had a trigger for. Lucky for me, go next door, the kid's sitting at the computer. So the other piece of trivia, what's the longest time it's taken me to catch a hacker? Well, there are plenty of cases I've closed where we had no one to identify because we had to rely on countries to help us. And at that time in the 90s and early 2000s, what you would find is that not every country had a law against hacking. So it's sort of like saying, you know, this person broke into my computer system from country X. Well, we don't care. We don't have a law against it. So go ahead and read those. Those are just some news articles that are out, put out by researchers, reported by Security Week. Any of those tomorrow could be what compromises your network. We have research that's going on every day that gets reported. This is just a small snippet of things I took out, but tomorrow this could be what affects your network, could be when you go home tonight, affects your network. Here we talk about the Internet of Things, and why I brought that up there for you is to have the thoughts of thinking about both things as I speak, okay? The Internet of Things will be estimated by the Federal Trade Commission to be between 20 and 100 billion interconnected devices by 2020. That's not counting your computers or your networks. These little bitty things, you know, we see them in the news. They will transmit, collect, transmit, store, and share vast amounts of consumer data, which some will be personal. I want you to think of, anybody here have a smart TV? Samsung, by any chance? Do you talk to your TV? Hey, you can do it with a Samsung. So that's a good example of something that can be exploited. There's a YouTube video, which I don't have here, with a judge, Judge Napolitano on Fox News, ridiculing, thinking that when the Director of National Intelligence brought it up that one day your TV will spy on you, your refrigerator, your washing machine, they thought it was a joke. And this is like 2012, 2013. Creative thinking would tell you it's not a joke. Critical thinking would tell you it's not a joke. Because in this case, the data that was taken from your voice goes to Korea. And they're using it to refine how the TV interacts, but the data is being stored. Me and law enforcement, I'm trying to figure a way how to get that data if I need it to solve a case. Just like Dr. Paulette brought up earlier about the Echo device, I think it was in the news, same thing. And not so much as that, thinking about this, so former Vice President Dick Cheney had a heart device that his doctors decided they need to go in and remove the wireless function. Their concern was, could somebody hack it from afar? And we're not talking standing right next to him, but down the street, could they amplify the signal enough and to maybe interfere with his heart device? Those all things can be part of cybercrime. Now that's being on the extreme, but creative thinking into the future and not being closed-minded, say those things are possible. Okay. So using the term cybercrime, just to give you some, according to Merrill Lynch, some of their research and Bank of America, you're talking about cybercrime costing the US, not costing the US government, but costing the global economy about $575 million a year. That's including remediation, updating equipment, patching holes, recovering, and so forth. I always tell you it's an ambiguous term. You'll hear people say it's anything with a computer. You'll hear other definitions where they will say it's anything that's an interconnected computer over the internet to do it. And you're talking a person making phony money on a desktop by itself, no internet connectivity, to a person breaking into a system across the network. So what I'm going to talk about mostly is I'm looking at it from, in this speech, from an interconnected environment, a hacker, and what we would do in the laws that we'll face as I had going down. So it can be computer crimes that target networks or devices. These types of devices can be include viruses or denial of service attacks. Crimes that use computer networks to advance other criminal activities. And you gotta look at this, if it can do a criminal activity, you can expand that to be from a nation state. So it will also fall in the counterintelligence and intelligence realm and national security. So for me, I think of a computer, I think of it from the point of view of a fruit of the crime, a victim of the crime, and an instrument of the crime. When I'm thinking of it in the point of view from the fruit of a crime, I'm thinking how it's used to as physical theft. So in the physical theft realm, think about it, how it was done. So if you want to look at cybercrime across the board, did I steal a computer just to steal a computer, like going to Walmart? Or did I steal a computer to get the data? Sorry. So you're looking at a computer from the point of view that you steal it to take the data off of it, which I would consider a cybercrime, related crime. Or if I stole it just to take it from Walmart or some store, not so much as a cybercrime. As an instrument of the crime, I can look for it to be facilitating the crime. Me using it as a hot point to get to another computer system, to do any nefarious activity, whether it's criminal and so forth. And Gary King has to get glasses from now on. And a victim of the crime, which is the endpoint. When I say the victim, you're talking about my system was broken into, but I can also be, as a victim, I could also still be a system that helps facilitate a crime. When you have to break into one system, and once you get a toehold in there, then it becomes, can I expand out and use it in another realm? So I think from that case, you're now a victim as well as a facilitator of a crime. So we're going to talk about what kind of cyber adversaries that we have. So you have the insider. So with the insider, you can look at the insider from the point of view of a willing insider who does it intentionally, like the Snowdens, or you can look at it for the unintentional insider. With an unintentional insider, you're talking about the person who may receive an email that has a Trojan attached, clicks on an attachment, goes to a web page, and gets affected. You also have the hacktivists, and those are people that are doing it for a reason. The activists, you think of anonymous and so forth. Terrorists, of course, we've seen some cyber terrorism, and we've seen terrorists use the websites. We're waiting for terrorists to actually maybe attack a SCADA system or being known to attack one and take ownership of it. And your cyber criminals, so you're talking organized crime, which we've seen with ransomware and so forth, or just a regular criminal to steal data. Nation state sponsorship. And nation state sponsorship, you're looking at countries that want to obtain data from other countries, whether it's financial, political, economic, to get ahead. And we see that with countries always trying to steal data out the US to get ahead of what we develop. And that has a cost on companies. They pay millions of dollars for R&D, yet somebody steals your data, so now you're one step ahead. So in talking about associated terms, so you have the advanced persistent threat. So if you look at the ones even below it, those all can lead to what we call the advanced persistent threat. So the difference was when I first started this years ago, advanced persistent threat wasn't like it is today. People would normally get a toehold, take what they need to take and go away, right? Today it's a little bit different. The advanced persistent threats are usually more advanced. You'll see entities gain access and stay there for months. And sometimes with the advanced persistent threat, they're looking to see where they can go from where you're at to the next target. Looking for trust in a network they can share. I always have the problem with trying to convince people originally about why a printer on a network was a problem if somebody broke into it. And I would laugh and go, real simple for me. If you share a trust with somebody, with another network and another organization, or with another division, you gave me access. I may not want to do harm inside of your network, your subnet, but the access to the other subnet to help facilitate my access. So Richard Balich, who's a noted author and researcher, he kind of summed up the APT as this. And what I must give credit to the Air Force about is the Air Force coined the term about 2005, 2006, the advanced persistent threat. So the advanced means the adversary is conversant with computer intrusion tools and techniques and is capable of developing custom exploits. Persistence means the adversary intends to accomplish a mission. They receive directives and work towards specific goals. The threat means the adversary is organized, funded, and highly motivated. So phishing and spearfishing, I'm kind of going to group those two together. So spearfishing is emails which appear to come from a trusted source, but are designed to help the adversary gain unauthorized access to a computer or network to obtain information such as intellectual property and financial information, economic information. So typically the difference between spearfishing and phishing, this conference today could be the inroads for spearfishing. So what you're looking for is somewhere they know that they have a connection in spearfishing. It's targeted. So if we were to receive an email from somebody today, you may be apt to open it up, especially if you're looking for a PowerPoint slide, a PDF to show up, and so forth. Phishing is a little bit more different, not so much directed from a group or where somebody has a connection to the sender. You know, you may get emails from in your email tonight that may go to your spam, the ones that come from your spam, that said your spam folder, and it'll be, you know, you need to reset your Google account, and all of a sudden there's a PDF attached for you to fill out. Now, did you fill out a PDF when you establish your Google account? But you may get that in the email. I would advise you not to click on it. However, when we go back to the unknowing insider, that could be the inroad. That could be the inroad that allow the APT, the advanced persistent threat, to materialize and take root in your network. So go to whaling. It's just like a spearfish, but that's aimed at executives of your company. Because let's face it, we all know, well, shouldn't say we all know, we have a predisposition to make sure the boss is happy. So the boss may complain about, why do I have to do these certain steps that everybody else in the country has to do? You know, like, why do I have to sign on twice? Why do I have to have 10 passwords? Why can't I just be able to do one and click and have everything? So they target the executives. If they click on them, they become the unintended insider also that may give access. You can see some of that from the elections with an email that went to the, I can't remember which person from the DNC. Yes, so the email went. Now, so the bad part about that one, or the sad part about that one, was they sent him the correct one to go to, but you know, he had no idea, so he clicked on the original email, and that was able to infect the computer. Okay, the watering hole is also a problem, and a watering hole is no more than a web page that might have been infected. It's happened before for companies. It's happened at the NHL website. It happened at the MLB website. I think the Major League Baseball, I'm sorry, the National Hockey League website, I think around 2007 or 8. So people that went there, that went to certain pages, nothing uncommon, they went to look, and their computer got infected with an advanced persistent threat malware. So those are all ways that are vectors to get people to the cyber adversary that uses to gain access to your computer system. So give a moment about the cyber kill chain. This is put out by Lockheed Martin, and I must apologize because I'm used to walking around to face my slides. So in a cyber kill chain, this is kind of like how we think they posited that how the advanced persistent threat works once it gets infected, once you get infected. You conduct recon, and you're trying to find what you can about the company. And the next time you weaponize, figure out what the vulnerability is so you can weaponize it and be able to use it to exploit the system. Find all of the variables during the recon, whether it's open ports, open services, services that shouldn't be open, unpatched systems that might not have been patched, anything to give me an idea what I can do to get the effective tool to compromise your system. Next, we're going to have to worry about how we're going to deliver it, how we're going to get that malware to it. You know, if it's a compromised port, or a good example would be a null password, no password on an account. That would be kind of an easy way to get my malware there. And then exploit. Set it there, and we get ready to install it next. Install it and let it work. So That will give us hopefully the command and control that will allow us to be able to go back in and do what we want to at a later date. But once we have the command and control, whatever our action on the objective or the network would be, is what we would do. So if my intent is to get the command and control and install it and start to do recon, because I actually can start the recon all over again once I'm inside your network. That gives me to identify, again, if I got trust on my network or other connections, I can see them out there. And maybe I want to exploit those more so than I want to exploit where I'm at right now. You know, maybe I want to take data from a company such as that has a trust with us that has R&D and bring it back through that network, exfiltrate it out. So I want to talk a little bit about the laws that we have. So most of the time that I've been involved in cyber cases, we prosecuted under 1030. And 1030 is the Computer Fraud Act. And that identifies protected computers that you normally see in the government. You also have where you would have a user who escalates his privileges or her privileges. That can fall under there too, because they're doing unauthorized activity on a network. 1029, that's one that sometimes get prosecuted, but not all the time. What you're looking for with 1029 is having access devices. So if you imagine you have a key logger or a sniffer on a network, and a person goes to their bank account and they put in their user ID and their password. So you have the two things that will give you access to their bank account. If they have other accounts, whatever the user ID and password, you caught it with the keyboard sniffer. So sometimes we have changes in law. The Patriot Act wasn't too, didn't sit well with everybody, but not everything is bad in there. One thing that came out to help us was the computer trespasser exemption. Prior to this, if I were to go out and do an incident response to respond to a hacker event, this is what I would have to do. So does so when you log onto your system here, do you get a notice that says this is a Middle Georgia State University computer system? So that wasn't always true back when I first started this job. What you would do sometimes is somebody may have the file transfer protocol installed on the system. You just go there, download what you want, going about your business. You get exploited, and the hacker exploited it. So the hacker never saw a banner identifying they were on a government system. Now, I think we would all agree that if I lived on Apple Street and I went over, felt their privacy was affected by things they can be recorded by, whether it's a license plate reader, video cameras, loyalty cards, the whole gamut, to include IoT devices. Probably the better part was, the more interesting part was watching people get knowledge. I had 3 people in the qualitative part where I spent 2 days with them, and we documented where they were recorded. So I had one person who was all for it. She started doing keeping track of what she was doing for the day. And at the end, when she sent me her notes, she redacted a whole lot. She had not thought about this subject that much in depth, but when she actually watched where she was recorded, she was embarrassed. Tried to explain to her, like, it's only me and you gonna know this. She was only gave me what she wanted. In one instance, I had a lady, we were driving through an intersection. I asked her to remember the intersection and a car that was in the intersection. She was being recorded by a driver. The driver just recorded everybody. So I guess she was concerned about rear-ending someone. So in the process, okay, quick. So in the process, when I gave her the brief, she was flippant. She was hot. She thought that it should be against the law. She had no idea people could do it. And she also had no idea about everything on her loyalty card that would come up. So I'm sorry. I hope I was entertaining a little bit. Thanks again, Scott.
Questions for Dr. King?
You were talking about the authorized users for the Air Force, the monitoring of the systems, that the legality of it didn't allow you to do anybody that had authorized
Yes, ma'am.
access. The legal process that we have to go through in order to monitor them doesn't give you the authority to do any kind of action if they're doing something illegal, if we're authorized.
So for me, I have to get it's sort of like a Title III search. I mean, it's Title III warrant that allow me to do network monitoring. So for me to do it in my law enforcement authorities, I have to be able to, I can't use the computer trespasser exemption if you were a authorized user that escalated their privileges to do something bad. However, if your organization is monitoring people already and have the traffic, that could be provided to me. I just couldn't tell you to go monitor that traffic. It has to be something that was already in your standard operating procedures, because in this case, you're not acting under the color of law. In the case of me telling you, that's sort of like me telling you, I want you to turn on to watch it, and I have an unauthorized wiretap going. So, but if you're doing it because your company does it, not an issue. That has to be with what your legal department set up for you.
Hello, Dr. King.
Yes, sir.
First, I'd like to personally thank you, and also on behalf of the IT department, as well as the student body, for coming out and giving us your presentation. It was very informative. Well, I'm a recent college graduate. My name is Daryl Stevens, and I would like to, ask for any students or any growing IT professionals, what's some advice for people, for growing IT professionals who want to pursue cybersecurity, information security, and information assurance?
Cool. So mentors are good, I would tell you. If by chance, is there any particular sector you want to do this in? Or just in general? Okay, so a mentor would be first. I would tell you to identify where you have an interest, where you're willing to, for me, let me put it this way, for me, this job is just as much my job as it is a hobby. So I read a lot of technical books, but I'm gonna tell you, sometimes you have to go read novels. If you're going to Robert Morris, you're doing an interview, the question may come from Dr. Scavira, what's the last novel you read? And you better not say a technical book, because he's going to kill you. So for me, I would say you have to pick an area that you want to specialize in. So if you want to be in health IT, I'd spend a lot of time trying to figure out what I can bring to that, so make myself a better interviewer. If you want to become a federal agent and try and work in the cyber, understand we do it from a big lens, whether it's counterintelligence, criminal, whether it's child pornography, and we're looking at production of, and so forth, and figure where you want to go there. As far as information assurance, across the government, there is not a lack of jobs offers for information assurance. Part of my job as the Deputy Chief of Cybersecurity is we work with a bunch of security control assessors to assess networks under the NIST framework. And you're talking, there are a number of controls, how a system gets classified from dealing with confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of data, whether it's high, medium, or low for each one of those sections. And then we actually they go out and try to make sure we have a secure network if it's not secure, or if we can't get it there, we work to get it there. And in the process of doing that, as long as people can articulate why something's not being done, we're okay with it. But we try to what we call plan how you're going to get healthy in the future, because you have to be able to authorize a network, and that comes from the authorizing official, and you get what's called a ATO, which means authority to operate. And that's big in the government now. Kind of funny, Al had no idea, but that was pretty much his dissertation while we were there, and I was reading it. And who knows, later I get involved in the exact same thing.
We have time for one final question.
Yes, sir.
You just mentioned that you had done a lot of reading in this field. I was wondering if you could choose one suggested book, technical or novel, whichever you choose.
Tell me which area.
The specific area you're in right now, especially dealing with
Come on, where I'm doing now? Oh, wow.
cybercrime and all, or the
Okay.
privacy, either or.
So if you were going to understand the NIST framework, I would tell you could start, I'll have to give you the NIST pamphlet number, but to start with it. And we're talking that from the point of view of certifying networks based upon the kind of information they have and the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you're looking for forensics, there are a couple of good books out there. I would have to give them to you. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but some of them are being used in schools today to teach. As far as if you're looking to understand malware, I would tell you any malware book would work. The malware Bible would be good. I've used it quite often. And I will tell you, I have yet to fully read a very thick technical manual. If you go to my shelf at home, what you'll see is a number of yellow stickies, dog-eared pages pertaining to the chapter or the pages I need to solve a problem. You know, because if I read them all, I'll be reading for days. And sometimes I do look for books on tape, books on CD, so I can play them in the car while I'm driving to work in DC.
All right, thank you very much.